Welcome to the Style and Strategy Podcast, where personal brand meets leadership and style. I'm Sonya, a personal brand and style coach who's been exactly where you are, juggling career and business success, personal growth, and finding a style that truly fits. After decades in corporate leadership, I've learned that showing up isn't just about what you do. It's about how you align who you are and how the world sees you. This season, I'm bringing you practical strategies, bold insights, and honest conversations to help you amplify your presence, unlock your next level, and lead with clarity and confidence. Let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone, to the Style and Strategy Podcast. It's great to be back after having a little bit of a break, but I hope you've enjoyed some of the behind the scenes episodes as well as bringing back some of your favorites as well. Let me know what you have enjoyed the most and potentially what you'd like to see more of going forward. It's been a little while since I have done podcast interviews and I have decided to bring them back. But this time, as part of bringing them back, what I'm looking to do is really bring guests to you that are going to complement your visibility, your growth, stepping into your leadership presence, and things that will really complement the things that you're learning from me that I know is critical as part of building your brand, building your presence in a holistic way. And so today, one of those key elements is really all about storytelling, or as I know it, after speaking to my guest today, story sharing and storytelling is one of those areas that I know I have struggled with for a long time personally, as well as many of the women that I speak to. So I thought bringing along this particular guest would really give you an opportunity to equip yourself with some key strategies and skills and take them into your next level. So I am super excited to be chatting with Nimarta Verma today, who I actually met through one of my business coaching programs as well, and really hit her off with Nimarta from day one. So in the nod of storytelling and putting, I guess, your money where the mouth is, I am going to give a little bit of a practice to this as well. And whilst doing this particular interview with Nimarta, it had been a while since I had used the particular software that I was planning on using. And I tested it. I thought everything was going to be fine. And yet, when we jumped on, there was a lag. That was take one. So we shut down, restarted, and logged back in again. And take two, it worked for a little bit. And then there was a second lag, to which I thought it might have been my high-speed, ultra-fast internet. But no, alas, it wasn't. It was actually the software. So third time lucky, I was lucky enough to just go back to handy Zoom and do the recording that way. So if it looks a little bit different, it's because I had to revert back to, well, a trusty stable house of Zoom. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. So to give you a bit of context around Nimarta, she's actually a leadership facilitator and storytelling strategist, creator of the story sharing method, a practical and my favorite human approach to building trust through story. She's got a career spanning 2 decades and helped shape the brand narratives of global companies like Unilever, Woolworths, and now helps leaders craft compelling stories from their own experiences. And so you can tell now why I was itching to have this conversation with Nimarta. I really love that what I believe sets Nimarta apart from others that I've chatted to around storytelling and story sharing is she's got this rare blend of strategy and soul. She really helps people find moments that shape them, own them, and share them in ways that build trust. And as we know, there's a world full of noise out there, and the leaders who dare to be real, the ones who stand out and bring others with them, can make all the difference. So tune in, and I hope you get a lot out of this conversation. Hi, Nimarta. It's so good to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sonya, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, fantastic. Look, I want to dive straight in because I absolutely love what you are an expert in, and specifically the framework that you've put together and the way that you've done that, which I believe you call story sharing. So, can you just give me a little bit, and my listeners, a little bit of insight around story sharing and what that is?
Yeah, of course. And I'm glad you love it. I'm glad it resonates as well. So, my whole background, my whole career has been in brand and marketing. And a lot of that then is about storytelling and helping brands bring their stories to life. I also have coached a lot of leaders and worked in the leadership and coaching space. Now, one thing I started to notice was someone, aka a leader who's a great storyteller, while they may succeed at educating or entertaining, I notice that it doesn't always translate into that connection or trust. But everybody keeps talking about you need to be a great storyteller. And so when I reflected and looked at that, what I realized is the word storytelling, it's really a broad term and it can be used for any kind of story. Whereas what neuroscience tells us, what creates that connection, that empathy between human beings is actually rooted in personal storytelling. So if I tell you, Sonia, a personal story, what will happen is that your brain will start to light up and you're trying to mirror my brain. And that's where empathy happens and connection and
Mm.
ultimately trust gets built. But it sounds like we've just gone down the path of storytelling and gone any story, right? And it's not working. Look at the surveys that are coming out, the Elderman Trust Barometer, like how that's showing that trust is really missing right now in workplaces.
Yeah.
So I saw story sharing as really that key piece that can connect that gap and really differentiate and distinguish between a story, which is still entertaining and great. We love stories versus the art and science of how do I share personal stories in a way that's not to entertain you, but to connect with you and to invite you into my world and build that trust with you.
Yeah, I love that, Namada. I've actually got goosebumps listening to you describe that because I know with a lot of women that I work with, and even for myself personally, you have seen the real strength of story. I'm going to use your term, actually storytelling, or what was known as storytelling, and exactly what you talk about in terms of this trying to build up trust, empathy, authenticity. And yet, we're telling leaders, you've got to share more of yourself. But actually, for many, it's really hard. It's really hard to be able to know how much, how little, how do I actually go about doing this? You reframing that and shifting that to being just sharing those moments to create that connection is just beautiful. So, for someone who was really unsure if their story even matters, or potentially thinking about, oh, wait, but that story is so personal, what would you actually say to them?
Yeah, that's pretty much everybody I speak to, Sonia. So, first of all, they're in good company. Look, what I've noticed is us as human beings, and as particularly women, we have really great intuition. But what's missing is that we don't trust it, right? So the minute something starts to surface, we squash it down. And that's what I notice because I have a process to help mine those moments in our lives called story mining, where we prompt and ask some questions about stages and moments of life and watch and see what stories will surface. And oftentimes, and try this for yourself, everybody, if you ask yourself some questions, you can even ask someone else to prompt you or even type into ChatGPT, right? And go, can you prompt me to recall some key moments in my life?
Yeah.
There's, of course, more to it, but as even that basic level, you'll find that intuitively There's stories that are just right there. If I ask you, tell me about a time you felt really embarrassed. If you just let sit with it and allow yourself to listen, immediately something comes to mind. But see, we squash that down. So what I'm encouraging everyone to embrace is that one, the first thing that comes to mind, it's most likely that's the story that wants to be told and wants to be surfaced.
I love that too, because exactly as you said, like sometimes thinking about those stories, you have to be prompted with some questions or things like that, because most of the time you just go blank around the kind of stories that, well, which one should I pick? How do I even then weave it into a relevant, maybe a team situation or anything like that? Or even, I think, I'm sure you'll have some insights around those critical times, like a networking event of some sort, right? Where you go, oh, which story do I bring to that? So, what would you say in those particular circumstances? Would a story be relevant? Is it, and how much to actually share without it feeling, oh my God, I don't think I was doing all the talking?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I get asked that all the time, and it's twofold, right? What you're asking. A, how do I match my stories to the moments? And then B is around how do I share it? What's the structure? So I've got a framework called story mapping, which maps your moments slash your stories to your message. And we always start with what's your vision? What's your message? What do you want to be known for? And then we overlay that with what are some of our audience's pain points or frustrations, and then we start to look at what can we share that will show empathy, what could we share that might inspire them, and what could we share that could potentially also educate them. So some of these are the key themes. So there's a process we go through that will map that out, so that in every scenario that you're in, you basically developed a bank of stories that you can use and that you can pull from and go, this is relevant for this, right? So that's the part about when to share what. And then in terms of what to share, again, a really good story doesn't need to be long. We don't need to say every single thing. My framework, what I recommend is we always start with sharing a moment where we see the action of what's actually happening, because that's almost opening a portal, right? We're inviting people in. We're going, hey, here I am in this meeting. Here I am at this event. Here I am sitting across from my manager. We bring people in straight into the action.
Yeah.
And then we can zoom out of the action a bit and give them just enough context. Like, hey, it's my performance review. It's been a year and I'm having my first chat with my manager about how my performance is going, rather than 5 years ago, I changed jobs, and that you don't need the whole history. And then we go into then what's the key emotional peak moments that have happened? Oh, this was said to me. I was really upset. I walked away. This is my realization. Like boom, boom, boom into the key emotional moments. And then we wrap it up with a takeaway. Like, why are you sharing this? What does it mean to you? What is the message that you want to embed into this story? What do you want people to take away from it? And that can be done, if believe it or not, that can be done in less than 2 minutes most of the time, a
Oh,
good story share.
wow. I think many of us would probably go, oh, 2 minutes that you can actually do that. So that's a great tip around how to actually make storytelling much more accessible to many of us. So what would you say makes a story fall flat, even when the content is potentially good?
Yeah, I think a lot of narrating makes a story fall flat. If you're narrating it and coming at it from like a chronological point of view, back in 2022, I started this job, and then in 2023, I realized I didn't like the job. Like I'm basically just describing and narrating
Yeah.
too. So we want to steal from what works, right? Think about good books that you've read or good movies that you watch. Like they're showing us what's going on. They're not describing it to us. So think about storytelling in terms of moments. You always need to have a moment. If you don't have a moment, I wouldn't call that a story. I would ask you to go back and go pick out a moment in that, because there's always a moment. Even if you want to share about I quit my job, tell me the moment you had that tough conversation with your manager. Tell me the moment you packed your bags. Like pick a moment and bring us into that moment.
Like, I love that concept of just picking a moment and not narrating it, because I think you're absolutely right in that many of us will just go, this happened at this point in time, and that was 2022, and then it was 21, et cetera, because that's the way some of our brains work, right? In that linear fashion around it. So, do you find that actually we have to do the mundane thing of making that muscle work and practicing it? What would you recommend if there's someone that is struggling with that and going, okay, I've got some moments, Namata, I've got a particular instance where I'd like to be able to do it. Should I go practice in front of my mirror, or what? Like, how do I actually make this not feel so awkward?
Yeah, it's really great what you're saying because I think this is there's a common misconception that some people are, oh, they're just a natural storyteller. Like, no, newsflash, no, everything is trainable. I've worked with people who are accountants who they can only speak in like logical facts and training them. So it's all training and practicing. And yeah, your idea is great about practicing in front of a mirror. You could practice, record yourself on Zoom and practice with yourself. You could practice with other people, start with a small group or with one person. But yes, it does take practice and it always takes taking a step back rather than rushing into, "Oh, I got to tell this thing." Like, no, no, taking a step back. I don't tell a story without first at least doing following my own framework, but at least doing like a bullet point. Even if I'm doing the bullet points in my mind, there's always a way to structure it. And that, takes practice as well.
Yeah. Okay. So, bit of practice, have a bit of a framework in place. So, is there one element of a story that makes a good, like that? I guess when you're watching someone or listening to someone, is there one element that can make a story really unforgettable, which will therefore help you become unforgettable in a room?
I love all the questions you're asking because I get asked this and I think people really want to know. It's actually, there's of course how you deliver a story makes a difference, but the number one thing that makes the biggest difference, Sonia, is your ability to almost relive your story again,
Mm,
right? If you're telling a story about the time that you were really nervous or really upset, like how much are you able to embody those feelings again and stay with them? Because it comes across in how you deliver it. And that's what moves people. A great story gives us goosebumps. And it's because the teller feels it as they're sharing it.
mm.
So I would say that's the number one factor is that you've got to be feeling that while you're sharing it.
So let's talk about it through the lens of leadership visibility. You know that, I work with a lot of women where we're talking about leadership presence, and I'm coming at it very much from a visual brand perspective, because obviously when they're coming into the room, they want to feel like them. That's going to make them, I guess I would call it, their frequency is a lot stronger, and they're more grounded in when they sit down to actually communicate. And then hence why I really wanted to have you on the podcast, because I then see as part of that presence is when you are articulating something or you're trying to get a message across and you really want it to land, that this is where storytelling can play a really critical role. So, what is your perspective on when you are in those rooms or up on those stages? How much weaving in the storytelling? Where have you seen the impact that can actually create when someone's really taken the time to sit down, especially if they're not great at it, to really learn and practice this sort of story sharing technique?
Yeah, look, I would say it's critical because in a sea of knowledge where everyone comes with their expertise and their knowledge, and your knowledge overlaps with someone else who's also an expert in a similar field to you, what sets you apart is your humanity.
Mm.
Is and that can only be shared through your stories. The way that it's great what you're helping these women and these leaders do because they then own who they are through how they're showing up physically.
Yeah.
And the stories that they share then is part of that. It reinforces them owning themselves as a whole human being. And that kind of presence, when someone is at home with themselves and able to share from who they really are, that does something that moves people, and that has people remember that. Wow, this person, like I was interviewed on a podcast last year, and it wasn't even about storytelling. It was a marketing when I was doing my brand consultancy, and the topic of storytelling came up. So I demonstrated and I shared a really vulnerable and personal story in my life as a demonstration, right? But I felt it, I shared it from my heart. And somebody from across the world, from Europe, contacted me upon seeing my podcast and said, "What did you just do? Like that story you told, I need to learn how to do that." And I'm now coaching her, so
Love that.
that's what happens when you can share a powerful story like that. People remember it and it's magnetic, and they're like, "What? I want that. I want to be around that energy."
Yeah. Oh, again, you've given me goosebumps. I love that. So, would you say then that there's always an opportunity to share a story, obviously of different lengths and or moments, as you say?
Yeah, 100%. Like I always have think from and not just like where can I share my story, but how do I build trust? So every time I'm in
Yeah.
a meeting with someone new or even with my team, I'm always thinking from how do I build trust? And usually the shortcut to that is a story share. And
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be elaborate. It can be something as simple as, this is what's been going on in my life. This is a little bit about my toddler woke up at 2 a.m. Like it's sharing something that is personal to you that has them go, this person's human. Oh, they can breathe a little bit. Like, she gets it. She's human, like
Yeah.
Sonya, our tech thing has been completely a mess in this episode. Like we can share about that and go,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, that can be your new story share. Like, I was recording this podcast and here's all the things that went wrong. And here's how I carried myself at the end of it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think to answer your question, like it's every moment is an opportunity to share.
So one last question as I come into sort of the close here is I think that there's two camps around this, right? One is you are really confident in sharing those stories and feel really capable. And like you said, it comes naturally. Others of us who are trying, feel a bit difficult, etc. But then what can happen is you walk into those rooms where there's certain individuals that will shake your confidence level and sharing potentially those personal, even if it is a moment, becomes just that little bit harder. What would you say to someone who's going, I've got these stories, I really want to share them, but those environments happen where and listen, my listeners know what I'm talking about. It's those moments where you've walked in, you go, I'm going to get judged.
Mhm.
And I'm trying everything I can do to push that judgment to the side. But I know in my heart that sharing the story is going to be the way to be more impactful. It's going to reinforce my presence, etc. So, what would you say to those women who've got those moments, who want to step into that, but are a little bit scared around doing that?
Yeah, look, you hit the nail on the head, right? And that's what stops a lot of people from sharing. I think A is recognizing that fear, that nervousness is never going to go away. Like I've been doing this for more than 10 years. And when I have to share a story that even though I've shared it before, 100 times before, I'm still nervous sharing it. And I still get all of those feelings of, are they going to judge me? What if I sound so stupid? Like those things don't ever go away,
Yeah.
those feelings. So I think if we can make peace with that, that's just how it's going to feel because I don't know, somehow evolutionary point of view, our brain thinks it's a risk to put
Yeah.
ourselves out there. But we just got to kind of let the brain do what it does and give it some space to feel that way. I think the second part of it is the reframe around sharing it not for my glory, not for me to look great, not for me to show off my success or show how great I am, but sharing as a contribution. Like, what can this story open up for another person listening? If people were struggling and they only saw the glory in my journey, then I've failed because I've then made it unattainable. I've made it that you've got to be like, I'm so perfect, right? So I always think of story sharing in that way of how can my story contribute to this room and open up something, right? Because the minute you are the first person to bring vulnerability into a room, man, the space shifts
Yeah,
and people just go, oh,
totally.
I don't have to pretend in here. And what kind of rich soul work can come out of that? And you've enabled that. That gives me a lot of power knowing that I can impact that kind of shift in a room. So I think the reframe makes a big difference to that nervousness.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Nimarta. And I think you're absolutely right in terms of creating the authenticity and the impact and really shifting the trust in the room makes actually that nervousness or that fear to step into that power shift to the side a bit. So I normally ask my guests a couple of questions where I put them a little bit on the spot, right? So it's an in the moment answer, which I think you'll be fine with. But one is, what is for you parking story sharing? What is one mindset ritual or mindset tool that really keeps you aligned when life is chaotic?
That's a really good question. I think I always say to myself, it's temporary. And I think that gets me through because there's moments and I don't know, like I've never known this until I became a mom, but there's such a thing as mom rage.
Mm, yes.
And I was experiencing it. I went, why am I so angry? But I noticed that when I just went, okay, just let it be because it will pass. So then I'm not resisting it. I'm just letting myself, okay, if I'm raging and knowing that it will pass, I think that gets me through anything because it will all pass, won't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then what is one book or idea that shifted you in how you lead or support others?
Oh, it's so hard to pick one.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna go not a business book, but
Yep.
actually one book that's had a real impact on how I see life overall is Life of Pi.
I've only seen the movie, but not read the book.
Mhm.
And why was that?
Yeah, it really, I don't want to give anything away and
Yeah.
spoil it for people, but it's really that whole thing around like how we choose to see things and how our perspective, it really reinforces this whole point around the perspective that we bring to life, the attitude, the way we view life actually has more impact on our reality than the events that are currently happening in life. It's how we choose to see it. And it's sounds like such a simple thing. It's not easy to do, but that really struck with me and it really stayed with me till today.
That's beautiful. And then finally, tell me, what is an outfit that you feel most like you in, and what does it say about your identity?
Oh, wow. Of course you had to ask this question.
Of course I
Hey,
did.
what a great question. You know what? It's so funny because I can't fit into it anymore and it makes me really sad. I still hold on to it, like, because I became a mom 3 years ago, but I have these Gucci pants that I didn't even buy it's from a thrift shop, but
Yeah.
they're like, I wish I could show it to you, but they're like black and sleek and it's got like some leather parts at the
Ooh,
sides. And every time I wear it, I'm just like, yeah,
I
I'm like,
rock this.
put me on stage. I'm gonna, and
I love that.
so sadly, I can't fit into it anymore. I've been holding on to it. I think I just recently gave it away to my sister, and hopefully she can that power, some of that power can translate, live on through her.
So we need to find you another pair like that so we can have Namara the mum and the beautiful story sharer who can rock those and still feel like that amazing, bold woman as well.
Love that.
Yeah. This has been such an amazing conversation, Namada. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and all those tips and frameworks around your story sharing method. So, for my listeners who really want to explore this further and get deeper on it and find out more about you, where should they actually start?
So the best place is my LinkedIn. Nimarta Verma. I'm the only one, I believe. And I've got a lot of resources that I share around a story sharing guide, how to get started in sharing your story. I've got a new custom ChatGPT prompt that I design on that helps you share your story on LinkedIn or email to make it sound more like you, and a couple of other resources. So if you check out my LinkedIn, that's a good place to start.
Amazing. Thank you, Nimarta. And so, for everyone listening and keen to jump over there, I'll have all of those details in the show notes. So, if this has sparked something for you, then tag Nimarta and I with your biggest takeaway or send it to a friend who actually needs to hear it. Thank you so much, Nimarta, for spending today with me and with all the tech issues that we had today. But I loved chatting with you, and I will speak to you soon.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I enjoyed this conversation so much. Thank you.